today, and it is for The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. All right, so The Poppy War is about war. Go figure. It's a sort of historical fantasy story based on Chinese history. And the sort of motivation behind it is definitely to speak on war and how it affects people. So we have our main protagonist, Rin, who starts out in poverty as a war orphan and is basically going to be sold into marriage, sort of. And so she studies and works hard to get into an elite school for sort of military strategies and training so that she can escape this fate. And, you know, things ensue. Her country's kind of always at war, and so whenever she's after the school, you get to see sort of what that is like. And Kuang does not shy away from the horrors of war. I can say that for sure. So yes, that is The Poppy War. The plot. I really enjoyed the plot. I was a little surprised. I think a lot of people know going in that I didn't. I expected to stay at the school the whole time, but you don't, I guess, which I really enjoyed. The plot was very interesting though, because you get to see this underdog story, basically, and I guess a lot of the plot was very character driven and very world buildy. But towards the end, I guess the second half, but especially just as you get closer to the end, it was almost like a whirlpool where you're getting to the plot, and then as you like get to the end, it just like circles in and you're like, oh my gosh, so much plot. And I really enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the pacing and the way that she did it. Even though parts of it were very character driven and world building driven, I still felt very motivated to read, and I still was very captured by this book. So yeah, the plot was definitely good in my opinion. And next up is world building. I loved the world building in this. I can't tell if world building is just good in things that I read, or if I'm just such a nerd with world building that I just always love the world building. I feel like that's a thing to consider, but I really enjoyed how this book, there we go, how this book was based on Chinese history, which is something that I myself am not very familiar with. I know that I'm not, everybody, but I know little snippets here and there, and it was really cool to see those snippets that I knew. But it was kind of a learning experience as well as just a fun ride. The magic system in this is really interesting. I really liked that. It's kind of my cup of tea. I won't go too much into it because of spoilers, but good Lord, I loved it. Yeah, I just thought it was very clever how she took different aspects of Chinese history and was able to kind of pick from that for her book. But yeah, the world building was fascinating. I'm really excited to get into that more with the next book. And then finally, the characters. The characters were good, so good. So this is told from Rin's perspective, our main character. And so we get a lot of her. And she is very determined. She is a war orphan to begin with. And it's very much one of those almost, I guess, sort of a rags to riches trope, only if riches is power. And I just really enjoyed it because she just worked so hard. Especially, like, she just worked so hard. And you get to see how it pays off, but you also get to see how sometimes it doesn't. And I just really appreciated how every time there was a success, I celebrated with Rin, and every time there was a failure, like, I felt it in my heart. And I just loved Rin, like, for all of her flaws, because there were definitely times where she was a little hypocritical, or she was a little quick to make certain decisions where I was like, Rin, what are you doing? But it was kind of like if you just take your friend and you just want to shake them and be like, what are you doing? It was more that than like, I hate this person. So that is our main character. There's such a good cast of side characters as well. There is Katai, who's her best friend in the school, and he's smart and witty and just such a good friend. Like, their relationship was so wholesome to me, and it just made me so happy. Then there was her teacher, or her mentor, I guess I should say, Jiang, who is kind of just this bizarre guy who is seemingly always on drugs, and he was fun. He was a lot of fun. He fell into one of those tropes that I love, where it's like, okay, is this guy crazy or is he just really smart? And I don't know. I love characters like that, where you're like, okay, do I take this person seriously? I can't tell. And I really loved him for that. And then there is her nemesis. Gosh, I think his name was Naja, maybe. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it was her nemesis, and they had interesting interactions, I'll say. I don't know. I just really loved that. All of the characters, they were all dynamic, and their relationships with Rin were interesting. And it was a situation where you could see them from her perspective and see how she thought of them. But there was enough information included that you could kind of come to your own conclusions as well. And I really liked that. So yeah, that is The Poppy War. I loved this book. I am so excited to go into the next one, which is called The Dragon Republic. Oh my goodness. But I hope that this review was helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you around.